This is Mr. Ippolito, and this is the Constitutional Convention PearDeck activity that we worked on over the course of a couple of days. And so I'm just preparing this to make sure that you have all of the slides filled in that you need to have filled in so that you can get maximum learning and maximum credit out of the assignment. So just in case you were absent during any of this time, we're going to be finishing it up on September 21st for A-Day students, September 22nd for B-Day students. So let me just go ahead and guide you through this. We started off with a prior knowledge warm-up about what do you already know about the Constitution. So that was the first slide that we worked on. And then we watched This is America, Charlie Brown. So if you were absent for this, you will need to watch that in order to answer these 5 questions. Question 1, question 2, 3, 4, and 5. So again, you will need to watch this in order to get this done, right? In order to get this PearDeck assignment completed, you have to watch the video. So make sure that you watch that, and I'll include that link to the video here. And then really we just circled, like, look at the weaknesses of the Articles of Confederation, circle the one that you think is the greatest problem. We had a conversation about that in class. And then we talked a little about Shays' Rebellion, about how, there were a lot of Revolutionary War soldiers who they went back to their farms, and they, again, we talked a little bit about the way mortgage works and the way land ownership and home ownership works. So for a lot of us who are homeowners, we actually don't technically own that land or that house. Actually, the bank owns it, right? Until you pay it off. And today, a lot of homeowners, grown-ups who have homes, usually the bank owns it because you have a 30-year loan, a 30-year mortgage loan that you take out on that home. And so over time, you pay the bank your mortgage payment every month. And then after 30 years, of course, if you pay cash, it's a different story. But, a lot of times for most families, it's difficult to pay. Today, homes in Santa Clarita, $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 or more. So a lot of people don't have the cash up front to pay for that. So you pay for it in monthly installments. It's depending on where you live. Maybe it's $2,000 a month or $3,000 or $4,000 a month, whatever the case may be. These Revolutionary War soldiers were coming back from war. Again, many of them farmers. Most Americans at that time were farmers. They're coming back because they haven't been working their farms for so long. They've they've accumulated this debt. They haven't been making the mortgage payments on their farms. And so the banks are ready to foreclose on them, meaning they're going to take their farm away, and their farm and their home away from their families. And these Revolutionary War veterans, they're upset because, first of all, they were the reason why they can't pay off the debts, their mortgage payments, is because they were away. They could not tend to their farms. And another reason why is because the government promised, either in some cases the state governments, and in other cases the national government, the United States government, promised to pay them for their service in the Army, and they had not yet gotten paid for their service to the Army. So understandably, they are upset. So much so that the courts, these bankruptcy courts, are foreclosing on their mortgages. They're taking their farms and their homes away. So this guy named Daniel Shays, he leads a group to rebel over this back pay that's owed in Massachusetts. The court system, because there's no federal judicial branch, right? There's no federal court system. So the state court system in Massachusetts, they're like, we're just trying to do our job. Like, the banks, they want their money, and these people aren't paying for their mortgages, and so we're just trying to do the business of business, which is, you owe money to the bank, you can't pay for it, then they take your property away. So these rebels, led by Daniel Shays, they seize the courts, they shut them down. They can't do any. Like, basically, the government in Western Massachusetts had ground to a halt, and they reach out to the United States government for help. The United States government is no help, and so finally they raise a local militia to put down the rebellion, and the rebels disperse. But really what this demonstrated was that the Articles of Confederation and the national government was just far too weak to deal with situations like this: insurrection, uprising, rebellion. And so this was really the signal. And you have to remember that our founding fathers, the framers of the Constitution, they were landowners, and for the most part they were wealthy landowners. And so these farmers here, they did not necessarily represent their interests. They wanted to preserve what they had. They had, the founders, they had fought in the Revolution just like these guys did, but they had some property to show for it. They had some wealth. They wanted to hang on to that wealth, and they wanted to preserve kind of their place in society and preserve their country. And so they're like, if this country's going to last, if our wealth that we have accumulated is going to last, we need to have a stronger national government. And so that's what led them then to Philadelphia in 1787, where the state representatives come together to decide they're going to create a new government rather than trying to fix the Articles of Confederation. They're just going to go ahead and start brand new. We did not end up doing this slide just because I thought, oh, I don't like this question. So originally I had it in there. You don't need to answer this. You can if you want, but I'm removing this slide. We did talk about the plans for the Constitution. The Virginia plan, which was the large state plan, that was the plan that said, you know what, representation in Congress should be based on population. And then the New Jersey plan, where they said, no, representation in Congress should be equal for all of the states. So that way the little states don't get outvoiced, don't get, outmanned, and, they still have a say. So who's going to win? Is it the big states? Is it the small states? Well, you know what? We're going to have a compromise in the Constitution. So that is the Great Compromise. And so it was able to solve the debate between the large and the small states because it splits Congress, the legislative branch, into two different houses. Now, under the Articles of Confederation, Congress was a single house. It was what we call a unicameral legislature, one house, unicameral, or one chamber, unicameral, and representation was equal by state. But in this bicameral legislature, where it has two chambers, one chamber is the Senate, where there is equal representation, 2 senators per state. But then you also have the House of Representatives, which is proportional based on your population. So we talked about this plenty of times in our class. The state that has the highest population, that's us, California. We currently have 53 representatives in the House of Representatives, whereas a less populous state like North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming, Alaska, they only have 1, which is the minimum. A state can't have less than 1 representative in the House of Representatives. So that was the Great Compromise. And then that led us into the discussion of the 3/5 Compromise. And so that led us then to watch this video here, which is Crash Course Black American History, the United States Constitution, where we were answering this question. So you watch that video and answer this question. Sometimes American history demands that we hold sets of complicated truths. You need to watch this video to understand what those complicated truths are. And then you answer the question, what are these complicated truths that Mr. Smith in the video is talking about? So if you want to answer the question to show me that you actually watched the video, you have to watch the video. And then that way you'll know how to unlock that question. Okay, and so then we talk about congressional apportionment. This right here, this map that you see here, this is the map of representation in Congress now. You'll notice you see California has 53. Texas here has 36. They grew. Back in 2010, they gained more representation, as did these other blue states here that are coded in blue. Florida got more representation in 2010. We talked about the census, how every 10 years we count all the people in the United States. And the reason why we do this is to determine how many representatives we're going to have in Congress. So these are the numbers for 2010 that have lasted us the past 10 years. Now, these are the numbers effective for the census that we just took in 2020. You'll notice California, for the first time ever, we lost a representative in Congress. It's not that we haven't been growing. We have still been growing. We grew at a rate of 6% between 2010 and 2020. Our population grew by 6%. However, Texas grew by over 15%, their population. And then other states like Colorado, Montana, Oregon, North Carolina, Florida, they also grew at a faster rate than we did. Now, Illinois, Michigan, Ohio, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, and New York, they also did not grow as fast. I actually think West Virginia, they didn't even grow. They lost population in the last 10 years. So, and then all the rest of the states, they keep their same level of representation that they had from 2010 to 2020. These numbers will now last basically from the 2022 congressional election till the 2032 congressional election, because we'll have another census in 2030. Okay. This question I would like for you to answer, please. What does it mean when we say the Constitution is the supreme law of the land, right? So in a couple of classes, we've had the discussion, supreme means like the Supreme Court of the United States. It is the highest court in the land. There's no other court that has more power than the Supreme Court. When we talk about those of you who are Marvel fans, when you hear about like the Doctor Strange movies, the Sorcerer Supreme, right, is like the sorcerer that is more powerful, and that no one can be bigger or more powerful, no sorcerer than the Sorcerer Supreme. So if supreme means nothing is higher than this person or this thing, what do you think it means when we say the Constitution is the supreme law of the land? So answer that question for us. And then checks and balances, which we're going to learn more about as we continue to study the Constitution. This system avoids a powerful central government, and you basically have each of the branches can kind of check and balance the other. We're going to be learning about that later, so I don't want to talk too much about it. But the Constitution also includes 3 equal branches of government, right? Co-equal branches. The legislative branch, that's Congress, they make the laws. The executive branch, that's the president and his cabinet, and then all of the federal agencies, the bureaucracy, which we'll learn more about. That's the executive branch, they enforce the laws. And then finally, the judicial branch, that is the court system, the federal court system. They interpret the laws, right? They tell us what the laws mean and also what the Constitution means. And we're going to be learning more and more about this in the days and weeks to come. We talked about how the Constitution solved the problems of the Articles of Confederation. Actually, we didn't get to this in all classes, but basically, one of the problems of the Articles was that each state just had one vote in Congress regardless of size. The solution to that was the Great Compromise, where you have equal representation for each state in the Senate, but then proportional based on population in the House. Congress had no power to tax under the Articles. It now has the power to mandate taxation so that it can have the money to function, right? You need money for a military. You need money for government to function. So you need to tax, and you need to make it so that it's required. And so that's number 2 there. Number 3, under the Articles of Confederation, there was no executive branch in the federal government. So the executive branch, there is an executive branch under the Constitution led by the president. Number 4, no national court system, no judicial branch. There is a judicial branch under the Constitution, a Supreme Court, and a system of federal courts. Amendments require unanimous vote. So if you're going to make any kind of amendment or change under the Articles of Confederation, just one state was all it would that's all it would take to, 12 other states, or today 49 other states could want to make a change, but just one state holds out and then it blows the whole deal. So now the amendment process under our Constitution, 2/3 of Congress has to vote for it and 3/4 of the states. President actually has nothing to do with the amendment process. It is Congress and the state legislatures. And then finally, under the Articles of Confederation, states were printing their own currency. Under the United States Constitution, there is now, and there has been, a national currency. So you no longer have Massachusetts dollars, Florida dollars, Georgia dollars. Like, you don't have dollars from all these different states. We have one United States currency, and that is it. That is the official currency of the United States. Not counting cryptocurrency, but that's a story for another day. And then finally, your exit ticket. This is the last thing that I want you to respond to here. So the Constitution established a government that shared power between the national and state governments, protected the rights of states, and provided a system for orderly change through amendments to the Constitution itself. So number 1, how can the Constitution be changed? I'm giving you the answer. The answer is amendments. Amendments. So we're going to talk more about amendments, so I don't feel bad giving you the answer. Number 2, this is really more of an opinion question. So number 1 is a fact question. Amendments, number 1. Number 2, why do you think it's important? Because this is a system called federalism, or the federal system, where the United States government, the federal government, national government shares, it separates and shares powers with the state governments. So we'll be learning more about this and kind of the details behind this. But why do you think, this is an opinion question for you, why is it important that the national government and the state governments divide up powers and share powers? For example, why is it important, do you think, that the states are responsible for fire protection and police protection, whereas the national government is responsible for the armed services, right? Or trade with other nations. So why do you think this balance between national and state governments is so important? And why do you think they decided, our framers, the founders of the Constitution, decided to include that in the Constitution? Okay, that is it with this. And you've now had the guided tour of the rest of this slideshow, and hopefully that helps. And thank you so much for sticking around. Have a great day. I will see you next time I see you. Take care. Bye-bye.